This is Kevin Mayo, and today we're going to be drinking a Vanished Valley No Trespassing while we talk a little bit about IPAs. So this is not going to be a review, this is more of a rambling beer talk, talking about IPAs. Now we will kind of touch base on this a little bit, so let's go ahead and give it a pour. Making a mess. And we'll take a little look at what we got. Vanished Valley, so we know it's unfiltered, and it's a medium to dark yellow, and we got like two fingers, of nice white head, and there's a few bubbles streaming up through it, but not a ton of bubbles. So the genesis of this talk is, I was on vacation, it's actually, I guess it's a month ago now, and I spent some time in the Philadelphia area, where I used to live, and then some time in the Maryland, between Baltimore and DC, but mostly in the DC area. And I ended up going to, 3 breweries in South Jersey, all around the Cherry Hill area. I went to, I think, 3 brew pubs in the DC area. Didn't make any breweries, but I made like 3 brew pubs. And I don't want to say surprised. I just was a little bit, not even amazed. I was just struck at how their IPAs are different than what we're drinking up here in New England. I mean, I just kind of figured most of the trends are universal. Everything's a juicy bomb. I mean, a juicy, hazy thing these days. Not that there aren't still some traditional IPAs out there, but everywhere I went down there, the IPAs were really, actually 4 breweries. I just dawned on me, one I forgot. 4 breweries in South Jersey. But all the IPAs I really tried in that trip were old-style West Coast bitter hop bombs. IBUs ruled. Which, like I said, it didn't amaze me. It just kind of like, it was a bit of an eye-opener, where some of the trends that I'm used to up here hasn't really translated to the breweries down there. It's just, I don't know what it means. I did have some phenomenal beer. It wasn't like I had beer I didn't like. Had some great beer. Actually, the best beer I had is, we went to a Washington Nationals Red Sox game on July 4th. Red Sox won, yay, yay. And they had a craft beer booth literally right outside of our seats. I mean, it was only about a 3-second walk from where I was sitting. They had 4 different beers on them. I got to try 2 of them. Again, it was 95 degrees and 95% humidity, so I wasn't drinking a lot of beer. But there was a Mad Fox Pale Ale and somebody else, I can't remember who it is, but did a Blood Orange Goshen, and they were both phenomenal beers. So it wasn't like it wasn't great beer around, and I'm bitching and moaning because I didn't like bitter IPAs anymore. So that was the trip. I wanted to mention that. I was surprised by that. Wanted to talk a little bit about the evolution of IPA. There's been a little bit of chatter lately. Lou Bryson has actually beaten the drum on this. Good job, Lou. In the fact that, when I was growing up, all we got is macro lager. I've talked about this several times. I think I talked about it in my last beer talk. I came of age in the middle 70s. I graduated high school in 75, and it was legal for us to drink at 18 and 75, so I wasn't doing anything illegal, much. And all we had was macro lagers. And even a couple years later, it got worse because there was some consolidation in them. So a lot of the local brands, a lot of the local stuff that I drank growing up, it's just gone. Knickerbocker's gone out of New York City. Narragansett's back, but the original Narragansett's gone, and they were bought by Falstaff for a while. The 2 local Philadelphia beers, Ortlieb's and Schmidt's, gone. I'm just trying to think of some of the other local, some of the guys survived. Genesee's still out there. I mean, so certain of these small regional guys survived. I think Peel's is still out there. But Latrobe's, they went out of business. Again, I know somebody's brewing them. They bought the formula, but somebody's brewing. But again, to me, that's not the same thing. And it was. I mean, I drank the original Schlitz when I was growing up. It was Schlitz, Budweiser, and Miller's were the 3 national ones. And then you had some smaller. Pabst Blue Ribbon was around. I think they were more or less national back then. But really, the whole point of this, though, is at the time, it was a tyranny of lager. That's all you could drink. The only ale I can remember is Valentine's Ale. I don't remember any other ales out there. I don't even remember that Guinness was around at the time. I'm assuming they were, but I don't even remember Guinness was around. I mean, the craft beer world really started to kick off with Sam Adams and Sierra Nevada. Again, I've talked about this more than once, so I don't want to really get too much into that. But anyway, so there's been a beating of the drum saying that the IPA has become the new lager. It's like sometimes you go to a new brewery and you got 7 IPAs and that's it. You know, it's like how many versions of the IPA can you drink at one time? Well, I can drink a lot of them, but that's another story. But some of the stuff that made craft beer what it was, when we got Irish Reds and brown ales and reds, you know, we were getting these, you know, we were still getting IPAs, we were getting English style IPAs, you know, stouts, porters. I mean, some of the stuff that really opened the world up, opened our eyes up. Belgians. God, when I was growing up, no one even heard of Belgian beer. And you could buy that local, you know, you find in places that were brewing that local, doubles and triples. So the tyranny of the IPA is just taking it over. And I know it's the marketplace speaking to a certain degree, but at the same token, you know, responsibly, we need to drive other beer styles. And there are, I mean, I know there are other styles out there. I mean, the sours and goses have been fairly popular the last year or two. We did the Blackie IPA thing for a while. So now we're doing the milkshakes, which is, you know, they call it an IPA, but is it really an IPA? You're putting lactose in it and it's nice and sweet. I thought an IPA, especially an American style IPA, was really bitter. Even the New England style IPAs, depending on how they're brewed, when we get the fruity, juicy ones, is that really an IPA? I mean, again, the classic American IPA was about the hops, about the attenuation on it, with the sharp, crisp, biting. And the New England Juicies are lighter mouthfeel, juicy, not hoppy, not bitter. I know the hops give you the juiciness and the flavors, but so is that even really truly an IPA style? I mean, it is now. I believe it's an official style now, New England IPA. If not, it's all but an official style. So I kind of want to go into that. And I did want to mention, I mentioned the milkshake. And the other one I just want to mention, I just tried one of those brute styles once. And to me, that's like, they're trying too hard with the IPA. You know what I mean? It was like, what can we do different? Let's stand out for the crowd. And it was like, it finished dry. The one I had just finished dry, to me, for dry sake. It didn't do anything to make the beer better. It wasn't pushing forward the beer. It was just kind of a like, okay, I got a nice, I actually would have called it a pale ale more than an IPA. I got a nice little pale ale, let's make it finish dry. So, all this talking is making me thirsty, but let's do the aroma first. I got a nice pineapple. Got a little bit of the malt. I'm picking up a little bit of like caramel toffee in the backbone. Grapefruit. Yeah, very good, very nice. Now, I don't know if this one's dry hopped. He does a lot of double dry hop, and I'm not sure if this one's dry hopped because the aromas aren't really killing me. They're not. I got to dig them out a little bit. So, what I talked about milkshakes. I talked about the tyranny of IPAs, and and I want to talk a little bit about the history of the IPA. I looked it up. I first started brewing with actually a different brewing. When I first started reviewing with a different website, and my first one I put up was almost 7 years ago. It was June of 2011, and I looked, and I didn't go much in depth. I'm like, sure as shit, the first 2 things I put up was IPAs, and I didn't think they were as prevalent back then. That's when they were really starting to take off. So I'm like, oh my God, my whole premise that I'm going to talk about has gone down the tubes. But then I looked, and literally the next 12, maybe even 14, wasn't an IPA in a bunch. There was a couple of styles. There was a brown. There was Dogfish Head. I can't think of it now. I'm blanking. But it's a really good beer. And it's a strong brown ale or a strong dark ale. You know, so it wasn't the tyranny of it. I'm thinking. I actually reviewed City Steam Naughty Nurse, which is probably, I guess it's an English Amber or an ESB, which is still a great beer. It really is. It's just a delicious beer. And I'm thinking about the time, on my list of over 2,000 beers, City Steam is by far the most beers, the brewery with the most beers on it. And back then, I don't even know if they had an IPA on the list at the time. They had blonde ales, they had, I don't know if they had the Dunkel back then, but they had they had a wheat beer that was phenomenal back then. They haven't brewed it in a while. They had the Naughty Nurse. I don't know if they had an IPA, it was probably more of an English style IPA. Their first really true IPA to take off was the Innocence, which I think came a few years later. And now when I go there, they do have 2, 3, 4 IPAs on at the time. And again, it's really the marketplace driving them. I understand that, but they still brew a lot of them. They got a Dunkel on right now, which I like a good Dunkel. So. And I think that's probably about where I wanted to go with this. I just want to talk a little bit IPAs. I'm kind of wondering what people think about this as I come across these topics, because after 300 plus reviews, I'm just kind of looking for something else to spice it up a little bit. So let's give it a taste. Yeah, so it's got a nice malt background up front. I really like it. Then I get the pineapple. Get a little bit of the grapefruit at the back end. Finishes reasonably bitter. I think it's 7% ABV. I'm not sure what the actual IBUs are on it. But it's kind of I know it's, again, I'm calling it hazy, but I would actually call this more of a West Coast style IPA. That's the bitterness I'm getting off of it. And I picked this up this week, so it's only, it was just canned last week, so it's not old. It's not like it's gone bad on it. I think it's a 90 out of 100. It's an A beer. Till next time, keep drinking.